Have you ever wondered if love is capable of overcoming time and even the laws of nature? What I'm about to tell you today isn't just an emotional story. It's proof that a genuine bond, forged in tenderness, can be stronger than science itself. Just imagine a predator weighing over 400 pounds, terrifying, with teeth and claws that inspire fear. Now, imagine that same animal sees you not as a meal, but as the only person in the world capable of calming it. It's the kind of thing we only see in movies, right? But believe it or not, it's exactly what happened. Our title is no exaggeration. The lion shocks the world. And it wasn't with a roar of fury, but with a gesture that made the whole world stop and think. This journey begins 20 years ago, when our protagonist, a big-hearted zookeeper named Henry Thompson, raised an orphaned lion cub. He fed him, comforted him, and gave him a name that echoed with the strength of royalty, Simba. What they built together was something that not even the most renowned biologists could have predicted. But time passes, and destiny separated these two. For 2 decades, life took its course, but memory is a funny thing. It hides in the corners of our soul, ready to resurface when we least expect it. And for these two, that moment came in a completely explosive way. What happens next, when the unexpected encounter occurs, will leave you breathless. Watch to discover how a lion, with a wild life running through its veins, reacted to seeing the one person he never forgot. Have you ever felt the air vibrate in a different way, as if an invisible danger were approaching? On an ordinary day at the Washington National Zoo, that feeling took over everyone. The afternoon sun, which until then had seemed warm and welcoming, suddenly lost its glow. What started as a panicked whisper turned into screams, and the sound of shoes hitting the hot asphalt mixed with the distant roar of an animal. The lion Simba, with his impressive 400 pounds of pure strength, had made an escape. The escape caused unimaginable chaos. Families ran desperately. The smell of sweat and fear hung in the air. In this scene of pure terror, an elderly man with slow steps and a walking stick in his hand moved in the opposite direction. It was Henry Thompson, the retired zookeeper, who was spending the day visiting the zoo's old residence. The other keepers shouted for him to run, but Henry, with unbelievable calmness, continued on. He saw the lion, imposing, walking freely. His heart froze, but something in his soul kept him from fleeing. Have you ever felt an intuition so strong that you ignore the instinct for self-preservation? That's what happened. Do you believe that? Lions, even those raised in captivity, maintain complex social behavior with hierarchies and bonds that seem to have a surprising memory. Well, scientists have already proven that this memory can go far beyond what we imagine. And Henry, without knowing it, was about to prove it in real life. As the lion approached, the world seemed to have stopped. Henry didn't make any sudden movements. He just stood there, waiting. And what happened next, when the lion paused and raised its head, was so unexpected that it left everyone pale. I can still feel the tension of that moment. The lion, immense and with a golden mane that seemed to catch fire under the sun, stared at the old zookeeper. The roar, which had previously echoed as a threat, was now a soft sound, almost a purr. The animal approached Henry, and instead of an attack, rubbed its face against his body. That reunion was not dangerous at all. It was a pure moment of affection. Can you believe that a wild animal can have such a deep emotional bond with a human to the point of defying years of instinct? Henry's trust in that moment was not blind. It was the certainty of a love that had been cultivated since Simba was an orphaned cub. He remembered every sign of affection, the smell of a lion cub in his lap, and the nights he cared for an animal that had been rejected by its own mother. Here's a life tip for you. Just like Henry, value the small gestures of affection, because that's where the strongest connections are built. It's fascinating to think that science, with all its studies, still struggles to understand the emotional memory capacity of animals. Researchers would later say that the amygdala, the part of the brain linked to emotion, might be the great secret behind that memory. As the public watched in shock, the scene unfolded like an improbable ballet where danger transformed into tenderness. The lion, that majestic predator, seemed to have found his father again. And the big question is, how would Henry, with the eyes of the crowd on him, handle the next step? The tension in those seconds was heartbreaking. People were still terrified, and the zoo staff was approaching with tranquilizer rifles, the smell of metal in the air. But Henry, with his deep and calm voice, whispered something to the lion, and Simba reacted, as if obeying an order he knew by heart. The animal moved away, and following Henry's gentle gestures, walked beside him like a pet dog. Can you believe that? The most incredible thing of all is that Henry didn't need force, just trust and the emotional bond they had built. He was able to guide the lion peacefully back to its enclosure without a single incident. It was an impressive feat that showed that communication between species goes far beyond words. The subtle touch of a hand, the tone of voice, the look, all of it carried a memory of 20 years. Who hasn't felt that an animal seems to understand? Our soul? This is where the great lesson lies. Sometimes, the most powerful solution to a conflict is not in force, but in connection and calmness. Have you ever thought about how many situations in your daily life you could solve with more patience and less haste? Our instinct tells us to fight or flee, but Henry showed us that sometimes the answer is to stay, trust, and connect. But this extraordinary feat would not go unnoticed. In fact, it was about to become much, much bigger than anyone could have imagined. What happened next was an avalanche. The images of the reunion, filmed by security cameras and visitors' cell phones, spread like wildfire online. The video of the lion obeying an old man with a cane went viral. Suddenly, the emotional bond between Henry Thompson and the lion Simba was a topic in newspapers all over the world. Can you believe that a simple proof of love in a zoo could generate so much interest? The viral event forced the zoo to do a complete review of its security policies, but it went even further. The story inspired the creation of a program for retired zookeepers to visit the animals they helped raise. Additionally, scientists from around the world became interested in the case. They launched studies on animal memory and the interspecies connection, using Henry and Simba as a case study. They wanted to understand, how can the brain of a predator remember a human face and an emotion after so much time? Here's a valuable tip for your life. Never underestimate the impact of a kind gesture. A small act of trust, like Henry's, was capable of generating a movement that changed the way a zoo, and perhaps the world, viewed the relationship between humans and animals. This shows that the greatest changes often come from where we least expect them. But the story of Henry and Simba doesn't end there. In fact, its ending is the most definitive proof of what happened on that day. The reunion event was not an isolated case. Years passed, and Henry, now older and with his walking stick always at hand, continued to visit the zoo. The air in Simba's enclosure seemed to change as soon as the zookeeper approached. The lion, now older, would abandon whatever he was doing to come to the fence. It was as if, for him, no time had passed. Have you ever had a friend where, no matter the distance, the friendship seems to pick up right where it left off? That was their connection. The story of Henry Thompson and Simba is proof of the enduring power of love. It shows that when a bond is built with genuine affection and trust, it can transcend time, species, and even the most logical expectations. It is a reminder that love, in its purest form, has no barriers and needs no words. Just a look, a touch, and the certainty that the other soul recognizes you. This story serves as a universal life lesson. True strength is not in roars or flights, but in the silence of a connection that withstands everything. It is a teaching that if you give love to something or someone, that feeling will come back to you in one way or another. Think about that for a moment. This story of Henry and Simba leads us to a profound reflection. What is the true power of an emotional bond that defies time and species? The answer lies in the simplicity and depth of love. Henry's life changed forever, and his and Simba's story became a beacon, showing that trust and tenderness are universal languages that any creature can understand. In a world where fear often dictates our actions, Henry gave us a lesson in courage. The courage to approach, the courage not to run, the courage to trust that the connection with another soul is stronger than any instinct. He showed us that if you truly love, love protects you and guides you. And that is the great lesson we can take into our lives. And you? Have you ever had an animal that changed your life or taught you something about love and loyalty? Tell us in the comments. Your story might inspire our next chronicle. If this story warmed your heart, the next video suggested by YouTube will move you even more. Don't miss it.